Welcome to the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. I'm Joe Cook, got RT Young. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. And of course, head to InsideTexas.com. We're in May. That's probably the slowest college football month, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop talking about college football. We can kind of get a look towards what's going on in some of the opponents' programs that Texas is going to face. We'll go through the non-conference schedule real quick. We'll obviously focus a bit more on Ohio State. But there's some other things to talk about when talking about San Jose State, Sam Houston State, and UTEP as well. We'll go over also something RT you wrote the other day, Quinn Ewers, not a tragic figure in the landscape of Longhorn sports. And we'll finish up with Schadenfreude of the week. We can laugh at two programs this time. But RT, August 30th, Ohio State at Columbus, 20 years after the Longhorns really started their national championship campaign in Columbus as well. And Ohio State's going to look a lot different. They had, 13 players drafted, I think, maybe 14. Saw a number of their biggest contributors and biggest stars leave. But you could say that their two biggest stars didn't leave. And the question I kind of pose is that in this era where so many different teams, there's no perfect team anymore. Even Ohio State had, they didn't even win their conference championship. But they still have guys like Jeremiah Smith. They still have guys like Caleb Downs. And are those two types of players enough to really paper over what the Buckeyes' problems may be in week one of the 2025 season?
Yeah, Ohio State is going to be an interesting team this year because of, we talked about last week, they won the national championship, and that is maybe papering over some hard feelings that Ryan Day and the fan base and the school have towards one another. But they might have number one and number two, if not 1A and 1B of the best players in college football. I heard a 2026 draft podcast last week, way too early look, that was comparing Caleb Downs to Ed Reed. That's high praise. And then you have Jeremiah Smith. Guys like Todd McShay were saying that if he had been able to come out in this past draft that we had a couple weeks ago, he would have been the number one overall pick, which I believe that would have made him the first number one overall pick as a wide receiver since Keyshawn Johnson, which is really high praise. So for the Longhorns to open their season having to plan for two guys like that on each side of the field is obviously daunting, especially on the road, especially in Arch Manning's first start. But if they can get past it, they should really be looking pretty for the rest of the season because they're not going to face a duo like that in any of their other opponents.
Yeah, and I think there may be some Texas fans who look at these two guys and they look at the game that Texas played against Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And they look around and they see, oh, no, well, Jeremiah Smith, one catch for 3 yards. Well, they had two guys on Jeremiah Smith basically almost every play. They would put, I think they went with the strategy of Malik Muhammad and then shading Michael Taft over towards him to basically put two guys on him. And that's why Emeka Egbuka, that's why Carnell Tate both had pretty solid games against Texas for the Buckeyes. Jahdae Barron's not there anymore. So now you're hoping that, you can do the thing again with maybe Muhammad and Taft, or you trust Jalen Gilbo to be able to do things against him, of course, with some safety help. But Jeremiah Smith, we're talking about a guy who could be a number one overall pick. He's going to be able to do some things, especially for a young quarterback, whether that's Lincoln Kaiholtz or Julian Sayin, even with two guys on him. And also Ryan Day is smart enough to understand they're going to put two guys on him. Let's try to get the ball in this guy's hands pretty often. Even if Ohio State, finds a stride later in the year, we can kind of be pretty confident that Ryan Day, Ohio State, they're going to get the ball to Jeremiah Smith early because they know what they got in number 4, I believe.
Yeah, and then you obviously have a tall task on the other side. I think Longhorn fans and writers feel pretty good about the Longhorns' number 1 corner spot in Manning Muhammad, but number 2 is still up in the air, and that's going to be something that whether it's Kobe Black or whoever grabs that number 2 spot, it's going to play out throughout fall camp, and you're still going to have Carnell Tate on the other side, who is nothing to sneeze at, as well as Purdue transfer Max Clare, who, him and Jack Indries from Cal, who Texas nabbed, are the 2 best tight ends to hit the portal. really great yards after catch ability. So for Jelani McDonald or whoever's playing nickel, that's going to be a tall order as well. So though Ohio State is reloading a little bit at the positions around Downs and Jeremiah Smith, they're definitely not without weapons or talent. I mean, it's Ohio State. They're at the point and have been a while where Alabama was under Nick Saban, where Georgia is under Kirby Smart. The point Texas has now arrived at, where it's just reloading. It's not rebuilding anymore.
They do lose their two leading rushers in Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, but they have C.J. Donaldson coming in, the West Virginia tight end turned running back, who's become a real fantastic piece. Or was a real fantastic piece for Neil Brown's offenses. Now Ryan Day gets to use him. They also have James Peoples back there, a Texas product from Veterans Memorial High School. Saw some rushes last year and is going to be asked to do a lot more. And again, even though they're replacing Will Howard, you have Ryan Day quarterbacks. Like, these guys are pretty good players. Lincoln Kineholtz, South Dakota's finest. You also have Julian Sayin, who Texas pursued, but Texas wasn't going to get because Arch Manning was on the roster. And so Sayin's here. Maybe early in his career, if he gets the nod, a little bit of a bus driver, but he's going to look at Jeremiah Smith early and often. And then kind of same thing, I think, with Caleb Downs. People have this vision of Xavier Worthy flying right past him in the Alabama game a couple of years ago. He still had a great game in that one, despite Worthy getting past him. Worthy got past a lot of people, and he's still pound for pound one of the best defensive players probably in all of college football. Someone who's going to make an impact on every game that he plays. Made an impact against Texas, and someone that they're going to have to keep an eye on next season as Arch Manning tries to move the ball against the Buckeyes in Ohio Stadium.
Yeah, just watch Caleb Downs on that unfortunate second and goal from the 1 or the 2 that ended up being a loss of 7. The toss play that Longhorn fans will remember forever. Just watch Caleb Downs on that play, and you can see just what kind of game wrecker the Texas offense and Steve Sarkisian are going to have to plan around. But obviously, he's planned around big players before in his time at Texas and Alabama. And the good thing is this is going to be the first game of the season. So they have 3 months, obviously, just with the summer, but it's not like they haven't been planning for Caleb Downs for a long time before that.
I'm really interested to see what happens with Matt Patricia as a defensive coordinator.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
I know.
He's kind of a dual weapon because he can also call plays on offense. Just Matt Patricia is just – no, I'm just kidding.
I don't know if that's a weapon for the Buckeyes or not. But,
we talked about Bill Belichick way too much, considering this is a Texas Longhorns channel. But that might have been our first sign that things were going south for old Bill when he made Matt Patricia the offensive coordinator for the Patriots and absolutely ruined Mac Jones' career. So
I think that for as much as we want to throw some ridicule at Patricia, he's still, a pretty good defensive mind. He's not going to – I think he'll be able to – the question always is, can they pare down NFL playbooks for college players? And college players have been asked to do more and more. Caleb Downs is someone who can do more and more, but can he do so much to where he's covering up a lot of different things? And that defense still – it returns a lot of starting – linebackers. They have, of course, great recruiting to go along with them. But, some of those players just, they were good, not great. They were parts of the team, but they weren't the team. Can Caleb Downs early make sure that they're able to, I guess, mind their P's and Q's against an Arch Manning-led team? We can go pretty quickly through some of the other ones. San Jose State back on the schedule for the first time, I think, since 2017. And you may look across and see Ken Niumatalolo and think, oh, they're going to run the option because of what they did at Navy. Not really. He's a more complete football coach. The one big thing that stood out is that, yes, Nick Nash, the All-American receiver, leaves, but they made some retentions, including their quarterback. So that's kind of a big deal at that level and should be part of – I think of the G5 teams on the schedule – that San Jose State's going to be the stiffest challenge of the three, even though I don't think they're going to be any match for what Texas can provide.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have anything to add about San Jose State other than my son, who's a huge history buff and also knows basically all the mascots of all the college football teams, knows that they're the other Spartans. So, when we go to my in-laws' house and there's a PlayStation 1 with NCAA 2000, he likes to pick San Jose State for whatever reason, but it's definitely not the San Jose State program that Tom Herman faced in 2017, I believe, that just got rolled 56-0 on a Gerard Hurd Wildcat game plan. So it's going to be a better test than that, even though Texas is obviously at a much different place than it was 8 years ago.
The other interesting quarterback storyline over in the Texas non-conference schedule, UTEP has a 5-star quarterback. Now, Malachi Nelson really hadn't lived up to any of that. But the way I painted it is that, hey, that's a big deal for UTEP. That's a toolsy guy, but it's not someone who's ever really used those tools to make anything quite yet. Lost a quarterback battle with Miller Moss at USC, lost a quarterback battle with Maddox Madsen, I think, at Boise State. And so now, unfortunately, you kind of look at Nelson as a big-time bust, but UTEP will take that. And even if UTEP is just his one-year stop and he finds a place to up transfer to after, he'll probably do decent enough at that level to where the Miners and Scotty Walden will say thank you if they can get something good from him.
Yeah, Malachi Nelson might be honestly we're going to talk about someone who's not a tragic figure in a second, but Malachi Nelson might be one of the first tragic figures of the NIL era. Because, he was at one time going to replace Caleb Williams at Oklahoma, and then he was going to replace him at USC. And he was really looking at that spiritual successor route to Lincoln Riley's great quarterbacks, now obviously on his third school. I don't know if you remember, Joe, but back in the day, right after Arch Manning committed, Malachi Nelson visited Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher. In the Inside Texas message board, one poster in particular, who I don't think is there anymore, just absolutely lost his mind. Not great to hold people to their, midnight freakouts on sports message boards, but I just remember a legendary comment where he said, if Texas A&M gets Malachi Nelson, it essentially undoes Texas getting Arch Manning, which is funny to think about now that he'll be starting for the Miners.
Should be interesting to see. I don't know what else they have. That was a 3-9 team last year. A lot of it was buoyed by Walden's Austin P imports. So just, we'll see how many of those guys are left. But it may not be as tough of a situation as what's going on in Huntsville for Phil Longo and Sam Houston. This isn't like Phil Longo is like, you know what, time to get back into head coaching. He was out of a job, and then Sam Houston lost its coach. Casey Keeler won the 2021 FCS championship, made some more FCS runs with the Bearcats. He goes back closer to home to Temple. Not only does Sam Houston lose a good amount to the portal to North Texas, but they're not playing in their home stadium this year. They're going to be playing where the Houston Dynamo play in downtown Houston, and it is going to look like a coach taking over in a year zero, year -1 almost, because of so much change that's happened at the program in Huntsville.
Wow. I was just looking it up to see if we've ever played Sam Houston before. And it looks like, I don't even remember this, played once in 2006, 56-3. I have no recollection of that at all. But I was thinking this was going to be the first meeting between the two programs ever, but I guess September 30th, 2006. So that must have been a late addition to the schedule, a fill-in for something, because I don't know why they would have played that late.
I think that's the last time, and maybe the only time Texas has played a FCS team. Yeah, and it's definitely the last time.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot going on there. I think it's just that's probably going to be the worst team on Texas' schedule. For sure their non-conference schedule. For sure their overall schedule. You may see your favorite freshman football player get some opportunities in that game, especially if it's at night, probably on the SEC Network or SEC Network Plus. So before we keep going, got to show some love to our sponsor. That is Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
We'll keep going with something you wrote. I think something that the rest of Texas, the Texas sphere and the college football sphere has luckily picked up on. A lot of questions went out about Quinn Ewers saying like, oh, you could have been like Carson Beck. You could have gone to this school and made this much money. And I think there was even an ESPN report that talked to his agent. And he mentioned two different schools about places that may have been interested in him. He didn't. Through the agent, I believe, in that ESPN report, he said he wanted to leave a legacy at Texas. I wrote about that. Steve Sarkisian mentioned it, and then you wrote about it saying he's not some tragic figure who missed out on something. He did exactly what he wanted to do before he headed to the NFL.
Yeah, I think if you look at the draft slide, you obviously feel for Quinn. I think it was an element of overexposure there. And I think his agent got a quote from several teams. The agent threw a wet blanket over it, but a lot of NFL teams felt like Quinn was too big of a name to hold a clipboard. So maybe you even did see some of the Shedeur Sanders phenomenon playing out with Quinn Ewers. He just got overshadowed by Shedeur Sanders on the draft coverage itself because Deion is such a giant name. But I think maybe there is some truth to that because there's no justification for guys like Curtis Rourke and two FCS quarterbacks going over Quinn Ewers with the career that he had, with the talent that he still possesses, even though if health has taken a toll on some of that natural ability, and obviously playing in Steve Sarkisian's offense, which does translate to the NFL. So I think, when you think of Quinn Ewers, you have to remember the legendary moments he was a part of. Whether that makes him a legendary figure at Texas is up for debate and being debated on our message boards right now. But I think he's a legendary figure because of what he meant to the program and what moments he was a part of. 2 Red River wins, the reunion with A&M at Kyle Field, 4th and 13, several playoff wins, and then obviously the Big 12 championship, which I think Texas fans now discount way too much because you really can't imagine how miserable Longhorn fans would have been had Texas not won that last Big 12 championship and walked out of the Big 12 with their heads held high. So did Quinn Ewers always match the expectations of who they thought that they were getting? Probably not. He ended up being much more nuanced of a player than that. He wasn't even necessarily the same type of talent they thought that they were getting. He was even better. He was better at different types of things than I think people expected. He wasn't this gunslinger, launch the ball 80 yards that people might have felt like he would be his junior year of high school when you first saw the highlights. He was different. He was more of a game manager, much more of a pro style type guy. And I think maybe that has always caused a little bit of tension with Texas fans, but he's a part of legendary moments. And now is not the time to continue to dog on Quinn Ewers. Now is the time to say, hey, we support you. We've got your back. You're always welcome in Burnt Orange. You're always welcome in Austin. And we're going to hope that you prove the 31 NFL teams that passed on you wrong and carve out a career in Miami, which he has a chance to, obviously.
And that's the thing. If he goes to, I think the ESPN article named Notre Dame in Miami, if he goes there, that doesn't exist anymore. It's the team that won the 2023 Big 12 championship, not so much the him being a big part of those efforts and leading Texas to a place it hadn't been before. He forfeits all of that for, several $1 million. It's obviously a tough decision too. Like turning down millions of dollars is very, very tough, especially when it's probably going to be the last time. You're nearly guaranteed to make that money, even if you do go to the NFL. Because I looked it up, like his rookie contract, or at least the scale, now that they kind of slot everything, every single draft pick, his annual salary is under $1 million. He may technically maybe taking like a sort of pay cut as far as it goes with what he's getting paid by the team, as far as what he was bringing in at NIL at Texas. And that's even with Steve Sarkisian saying Quinn didn't take any money from the collective. He just made it all off of real NIL. So if he does that, if he goes to another team, what you just talked about, not on the table anymore. And he felt it too valuable. And this is said in an admirable way. He felt it too valuable for him to leave that on the table. And I like what you mentioned. I think the other quarterback there is the BYU one, who everybody thinks is a bust. I can't remember the name right now off the top of my head. I'm blanking on it for some reason. What's his name? He's wearing number 0.
Oh, Zach Wilson. Oh,
Zach Wilson. Yeah. Zach Wilson's there. I don't really feel like Mike McDaniel's interested in making a reclamation project out of Zach Wilson. He's probably just there to be there on the roster. I think Quinn has more upside there for the Dolphins, and so hopefully it turns out to be a good spot for him. Before we keep going, got to show some love to our other sponsor. That is David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor, and I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach, and he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
As usual, we will end with Schadenfreude of the week. Don't worry, we're not going to look at the Texas baseball team. They're still number 1. But we have to look not just north of the Red River, but almost all the way to our northern border. It came down today that Michigan is going to impose a 2-game suspension on head coach Sharon Moore, who is an Oklahoma grad, as an interesting tidbit. Able to impose a 2-game suspension on him for the whole Connor Stallions, sign gate, signal gate, whatever you want to call it. The Schadenfreude in that he's getting suspended, in that Michigan is putting that on him. It's that they got to choose, or they are choosing which games to suspend him for, and he's not going to miss that Oklahoma game. So that means that Michigan, with whatever their quarterback situation is, whether it be that transfer they have in or Bryce Underwood, they're going to be coming in to Norman, and they're going to be playing with head coach Sharon Moore in tow. And I'm still kind of here or there on Sharon Moore. I think he did a good job last year to start to get things going towards the end a little bit. They obviously have some Oracle investments in the NIL sphere. But man, it's funny when you're Brent Venables and you look at a make or break year and maybe even a make or break type game for your tenure, and they still have their head coach. You wish you would have gotten that break maybe, instead of seeing that the Michigan's going to suspend Sharon Moore for its matchups with directional schools.
Yeah, you obviously have a little bit of a dual Schadenfreude of the week this week, because you laugh at OU, poke fun at them that they're still going to have to play Michigan at full strength on the headsets. But then also Michigan is just picking your games for your suspension. Just show that you're like the kid who's trying to clean their room by not actually cleaning it, by just shoving everything in the closet. And the second the closet door gets open, everything just tumbles out. So, I'm not sure how I feel about Sharon Moore either. Obviously, he is taking a little bit of a different approach. You see it with the commitment and the signing of Bryce Underwood, that they're trying to play with the Ohio States a little bit more on the recruiting front. They're not trying to be as much of a souped up developmental program like they were in the last few years of Jim Harbaugh. So that'll be interesting. I have not really caught up or kept up with Signgate at all. I wasn't really interested in it at the time, but if more comes out, it will be interesting to see how long Sharon Moore gets in. Obviously, I think there's some language around his contract that even gives the Wolverines and the university a little bit of an out if more on that situation should come to light. But I'm sure if things do go south, that, like you and I know, Joe, more is going to come to light. That some convenient Friday news dumps will occur that say, oh, we can get rid of Sharon Moore with cause. But could be an interesting matchup to see who takes home that game between the Wolverines and the Sooners, because it might be the last time that those two coaches lead their programs in a big non-conference game.
Yeah, looking at the Oklahoma schedule, Illinois State to start, and then they welcome Michigan the very next week. So they'll have a tune-up game that Texas doesn't. I'm sure if you're Sharon Moore, you wanted to do that. You want to go coach in your against your alma mater. I'm sure it's always a fun time. We went through it with Steve Sarkisian when he was coaching against BYU in that last year in the Big 12. Something that you want to do. And it's a lot easier when you're up there to oversee things instead of, as what's going to happen. Not only is he missing that game, he's going to basically lock himself out of the facility for 2 weeks. Like, not going to be at practice, not going to be at meetings, stuff like that. That's where it really would have been felt. Like, yeah, you want your guy there on the sideline on game day, but you want your guy there telling others what to do ahead of that, and to be able to do that for the Oklahoma game. Sorry, Brent Venables, you're going to have a little bit more of a challenge to deal with as a result.
Weirdly, it reminds me of the thing that we never got, I think because of the COVID season, but do you remember when we were briefly going to get a Tom Herman versus Charlie Strong in South Florida game? But that
they
got
fired him.
Oh, they fired him?
I think they had fired him.
I thought he got well, I know the game against South Florida never happened because of COVID. But I thought that did he only last 2 years at South Florida?
You know what? You may actually be right, because I think I remember writing
they
about
played UTEP for the COVID tune-up game in the 10-game regular season instead of South Florida, and South Florida was really mad about it. But I would have been really interesting to see Charlie Strong's return to Austin and just all the coverage, and that would have been fun. Even though Texas still probably would have won that game, definitely would have won that game. I just wish we could have had the Herman versus Strong face-off.
I don't think it was going to happen. I think he got fired after 2019, and so it would have been that 2020 story. Yeah, 3 years at Texas, 3 years at South Florida. According to Wikipedia, which is kind of the go-to for me for coaching resumes, he's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line coach. Did not know that.
That's probably a good spot for old Chuck.
Yep. After maybe it's a little bit easier than working for his old buddy Urban Meyer. So yeah. We'll see with that one. But all right, that's another great edition of the Reheat. If you're here, make sure you like this video and you subscribe to the channel. And of course, head to InsideTexas.com. We'll have all the off-season insight. We'll keep going through the schedule as well, looking at opponents and what big storylines are. And we'll also always talk about the latest, what's going on in the Longhorn world. So, RT, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.